Okay, so this is our side back skirt, and just make sure you have got your snips in for the sides here, because we are going to need those in a moment, those little snips. And then what we're going to do is take our pattern piece off, and the first thing I'm going to do is just put that memory fold into our hem for us, so we've got that for later. So there's our pattern piece, that can go away. And then what I'm going to do now is fold these out so that those snips are together, because that's where it's going to be our centre back seam. And then I'm just going to press this flat because there's a little bit of a curve on the edge there where it's just been folded the wrong way. I don't want it to be folded that way. And then using my seam gauge, which has found its way onto the floor, I'm just going to turn that up, and that's going to be 4 centimetres hem as well to match the front. So turn that up to 4 centimetres there, and 4 centimetres there. And then you can just press that in place. Use your press cloth again if you're using a delicate fabric. That's that one done. Let's just move this one over and do the same thing on this one. Okay, so we've got the hems both memory marked on our back of our skirt. So let's pop the wool pressing mat out of the way for the moment. And then we're going to take our bodice. Now what we're going to do is have the right side up facing us. And the other thing you're going to do is now you're going to fold up the edge of your bodice so that the lining is flat at the edge. Can you see? So we've taken it from where it might be like that, and we're opening it up because we need this extra length to attach to the side skirt. So then we're going to choose our side skirt bit, and we're going to choose the side that doesn't have the notches. So the side with the 2 notches is going to go into the centre of the back. So when you're sewing the side seams, you need an unnotched, a side without any notches. We're going to match the top of this panel here up with the top of with the edge of the lining of the bib and put a pin. So we're just laying it right down the edge. So let's turn this over again so you can see. So I've got the bib folded open, that's the edge that we did for our skirt just there. And we're now going to make sure that's going to sit nice and flat. And we're going to stitch that. We're going to stitch the bib sides down. In fact, I think I'll pin it from the inside because we can control that better. I'd suggest you do the same. So we've got the top of the lining of the bib. So that'll actually be the waist seam of the bib there. And that matches up to the top edge of the skirt. The gathering, we want that to sit up inside the bodice. So make sure you stitch that going up into the bib. And then we're going to go down now and we're going to match the hem. So those are our match points, aren't they? So the very top here with the lining of the bodice opened out, and then we're going to then match this flat edge here now, this side seam all together. And just start and put some pins in, as many as you need, down the edge just to make sure that's going to lie nice and flat. So the first thing we're going to do, if you've got an overlocker, you can overlock this edge now, and you could stitch that down and overlock it. But I'm going to stitch it down first, and I'm going to come back and do a zigzag stitch just to neaten it, because I think, although I've got an overlocker, I think most of you will have a zigzag stitch on your machine. So at the moment we've only got one back piece, but if you look, our notches at the back here are on that seam. So I've not pinned the notched edge, that's got to be for the centre back. And we've got no puckers at all in that skirt all the way down. And as I say, if we turn it over, we can see that it fits perfectly when we open out the edge of the bib. So don't be mistaken and think that I've got my bib lining tucked down like that. Yeah, we haven't. We've folded open that bib lining so that that is all one long continuous seam through the lining, through the underarm and down onto the skirt. Okay, just like this. So then back to our machine again, and we're going to sew this with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Yeah, 1 centimetre seam allowance. So let's reverse at the top and the bottom, and then pin out and needle in our work, and then we're going to start stitching down. Just be careful when you come to the point where the understitching was. That's why we left the gap, because we want to have this sitting nice and flat. So I'm going to have to lift mine up and then just pull it back, and I'm going to use my awl to just pull that out and flat, because it's not wanting to sit so flat. I should perhaps have left it a bit further away from the edge. So that's going to be down. And then when you come to your skirt, you want your skirt poking up towards inside the bib, so make sure that's poking up. That's it, we've got it. And then now this should all just sit all nice and flat and straight against our fabric. And it's just going to be a little bit thicker where the pocket is, so just take your time over that section. Just keep pulling it, make sure you're not going to get any ruffles in it. And then reverse at the end. Needle out of your work, and then take off your ending threads and your starting threads. So before we zigzag it, let's just check that everything's all nice and straight. So on this side, we can see it's lovely and smooth, our stitch line, no puckers at all in that. And then on this side here, we can see that we've got it nice and straight there. You can see where I had to pull it open just there, because there was going to be a pucker form at the end because of the top stitching that we did, but that's all nice and open. And then the skirt gathers are all pushed up inside the bodice. And then I've caught the edge of the pocket, so you can make sure you've caught the edge of your pocket correctly all the way down and nice and neat. And we can also open it up, and we can see that we've got that all lovely and neat as well. There's the opening to our pocket, look, just in there. And now the pockets, all edges all been all sewn down all nicely. So the next thing to do now is just to go along and now just to zigzag down this seam here, just to neaten it. And because of the bulk at the pocket, when we press this, we'll be pressing this seam towards the side, so you can zigzag or overlock both of those seams edges together. You don't need to do them separately and press it open, because this pocket here will get in your way. So just zigzag that as one. And I think that I normally use, let me get onto my zigzag stitch, which mine is number 8, and then I usually use a 3, I think. I'm going to use a 3.5, and then so 3.5 width and a 2 stitch length. That should be enough. Then I'm just going to start at this top edge here, and we're going to zig in the fabric but zig off the fabric. So, and if you need to, if it's gathering up, this fabric is better than the other one. If you need to, you can either make your stitch wider by increasing, say, from a 3.5 to a 5, or you can then just yeah, so you can do that, and that will then help make sure that you've got all of your edges all nice and neatly caught in there, so we don't get any fraying. And you can also let off your tension if you find that it's bunching up a bit under your presser foot. So let me just take off our starting and stopping threads. I didn't reverse at the end because we're going to have the hem take care of that. And then where you've got any little whiskers like this that are just showing over the edge, you can just snip those back. Just make sure you don't snip through your zigzag stitches when you're doing that. That'll just neaten that off for you. So that's one side that we've got on there. I've got another thread here. Let me just get rid of that one. And then this, as I say, the seam allowance for this is going to be pressed out towards the side seam there. So that's going to keep that nice and neat to the centre back. so we can press that if we want to. So we're going to do exactly the same for the other side back. So this is how it should look. You should be able to see your lining at the top here, so don't worry that you don't worry that you can see your lining. You're supposed to be able to, because in another step we're going to fold that over, and that's going to make the back casing, and that will make it all nice and neat at the back. But for the starting point, you need to have this all attached. So let's go ahead and do the other side, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've just sewn my second seam. I was just trimming off my whisker edges here. Get rid of those bits. And then these seam allowances then are going to push out towards the side of the skirts. The next thing that we're going to do now is making sure that seam is pushed out to the side, is locate the join where between the lining and your main fabric, because that's actually going to be folded down now. I think it's about 3 centimetres. Oh, it's a bit bigger than that. It's more like 3.5 centimetres on mine, on that bib edge just there. Just have a look. More like 4 centimetres on mine, but that's where it says on this bib edge. And so what we're going to do now is we can just press that again just to make sure that that's lying straight. So just press that on that edge just to make sure that lies nice and flat. I have got just the slightest pucker in that edge just there, but I'm going to leave it. It's not going to bother me enough when that's worn. There's no pucker on the outside. There's a thread that shouldn't be there. But there's no pucker, so I'm going to leave that in place. So again, it just depends on what your tolerance is like for how perfect you want everything to be. So you're folding the top of the back skirt panels over so that they're in line with where the top edge of your bib was. Move across here. So that should be there. The edge of your lining should cover the edge of your gathers, okay, and just make sure that's even. And it kind of coincides with roughly where the top notch is on the side seams there. So let's put that all together. And then we've pressed that, so we've got that little memory crease like we have for the hems just inside here. Now Sarah says in the instructions to go ahead now and to neaten this edge by overlocking or zigzagging of the lining and the side, but I want to actually tuck that under and then stitch it down by hand at the end. So I'm not going to overlock mine, I'm going to leave that. Over the gathers I will actually hand stitch it, but on the sides here we'll use the machine. So I'm going to turn that under again. How much is that if I turn that under by? It's just under 1 centimetre, so about 1 centimetre. And I'm just going to give that a nice little edge just there, so that will match then on the edge, on the end. So if you look, we've got, that's our edge there for the top, and then I've just turned under 1 centimetre. But if you overlock it, you can just have it flat and just finish it off how you wish. But I'm thinking ahead, and I want mine to finish really nicely. So I'm going to press that 1 centimetre all the way along the edge there. Make sure that all holds. And again, just go across the front of the bib. Again, just approximately 1 centimetre. Not too much and not too little. And that cotton just presses much nicer than the corduroy. But what you can tell is that when you then fold your bib flat with that lining, that the lining then will just rests right on top of your stitches, and you'll know you've got the right turn under at that section, because I will hand stitch that closed in the end. And that will just sit nicely on top there. Okay, so that's where we're going to now. So then we're going to turn it over now so that it's right sides up, because we want to put this back centre seam together. So I've got my bib here. Oops, can you see? Bib's here, and there's the lining still showing. So that's still folded up at the moment. So I'm folding out those hems. I'm going to put the right edges together, but we're going to use our red pin trick, which is we're going to use a red pin because we've got notches here, and where the notches are we're going to put a pin there and a pin at the other one as well. Okay, and that means we're not going to sew between those 2 points just there. So there's my red pins. So now, using different colour pins, I go up to the top, make sure that those match. Oops, and click together. and I'm going to go down to the hem first, because that's our match points. We know that we cut those out to the pattern, so they should be perfect and should match on top of each other. And then you can then go ahead and just put whatever pins you want to just through this back seam, just holding that all together. Okay, so that's what that's looking like. Yep. So we've got all that already all down there. So now what we're going to do is take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to start here at the top edge. We're going to sew down to the first red pin and reverse. So reverse at the start and reverse at the pin. Break our threads, rejoin them again at the second red pin, sew, and then all the way down, because there's actually a ribbon that's going to go through there, and it needs to poke to the outside so that we can tie it in a bow. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Let me put my things out of the way. So let's join this, and it's a 1 centimetre seam allowance again, and make sure you're not on your zigzag stitch still, make sure you're on your straight stitch. So let's reverse, hold on to our threads, down to the first red pin. When we're almost there, take it out and do another couple of stitches, take you to where you needed to be, and then reverse. Needle out of our work and cut our threads. It's like a mantra, isn't it? Needle out of our work, cut our threads, and then rejoin where the other neat pin is. Take that one out, hold on to your threads, and then start again, reverse, and then down. Then reverse at the hem again. And cut our starting threads off. And now what she actually wants us to do is we can go ahead and we can neaten this. This is our centre back seam. We've got our memory for our crease. So I've opened up my seam allowance, and I'm just going to fold that down. I think I'll zigzag this separately actually then, because you just walk through the next steps. Turn up that edge that we're going to be machining. So everything from this point here is going to be covered in the back seam, so I don't need to zigzag that. But if we zigzag this here where the little gap is, because we've got a little gap, can you see my finger just poking through? Where's my, poke my awl through so you can see it. So there's a gap just here. Oops. That'll go through. Yeah. And that's right, because that's where the ribbons are going to thread through. So we can zigzag down one side and then zigzag down the other, because then this back seam here will get pressed open like that and sit nicely on the back there, so that that doesn't make too much bulk at the back here. And then before we close all this up, we've got to work on the ribbons. But I've got to nip to the Mertheria and pick up my ribbon, which we'll be doing tomorrow. So I'll carry on with this tomorrow. The first thing that I might do though, so I'm going to, right, let me go back. I'm going to zigzag down each of these seams now separately, and then I'm going to press this seam open. Okay, so that's the step I'm going to do next. Then I'm going to just park this for 1 second, because I'm going to jump ahead onto the straps. And what I'm going to do is we're going to sew our straps by, I'm going to press them first. Jumping around, I know, but I think you're with me. Let me get my pressing mat. Let's just give them a quick press just to hold them. You can use your press cloth if you want to, just to hold that together. And then we're going to turn them so that they're wrong side up, and I'm going to work with them sideways. So make sure you get it doesn't matter so much throughout me. And what you do first is you're going to fold them in half and just give them a little press, because this is going to give you a crease to work to. I'll do one and then we'll work on the other, but this will help. Okay. So when we open that out, we've got a crease in the middle. And this is the same way that you make bias binding, if you ever want to make your own bias binding. And then where the crease is in the middle, you're going to fold first one edge down to the middle, and then you're going to press again. It will get rid of that, the press line, but so long as your first half goes up to the centre point, you'll be fine. And then you're going to take the second one and put it up to, but not over. So you don't want to go over the other one and overlap them. It needs to just barely be touching, if at all, because you need room for that to fold. So let me just show you this. Oops, the hand's falling over. So there's our binding, and if I open it up, you can see where those folded lines are, hopefully. So they're both folded into the centre. Then the final step is to put one over the top of the other, match up the edges, and then you're going to then press it again. Again, use your press cloth if you want to, so you can see where you are. And that's going to give you this lovely strap then. Okay, so that's down there. Okay, so do the other one as well the same. And then what we're going to do then is where it's folded it together and you've got the raw edges in the middle, you're actually going to fold the edges back on themselves so the raw edges are out. Because then with that together, we're just going to neaten off the edges by just sewing backwards and forwards over this edge. And then we can then turn that round and that'll give us a neat edge before we then sew the side seams on that. Okay, let me just do this other one and I'll show you. Okay, so just to show you, I have just neatened off those seam edges for the centre back seam, taking it up to the top there. But I've not done round the waist seam because I'm going to tuck mine under, but you need to do yours if you're going to do that. And then I've got my folded straps here. Let me just take my stitch back down to a straight stitch. So we've got the raw edges here, as you can see as they fold out. So the first fold of the raw edges needs to be in, but then you need to fold it back on itself. So the centre fold, right sides are together and the edges of your thing are just sticking out like that. Because then you're going to flatten it down again with your finger and thumb, and then you're just going to do a little seam allowance and you're just going to just stitch across and then back again just to hold those edges. And you're going to do that on both ends, and then what you're going to do is just take a little snip off the corner, because again it's all about taking out this bulk so that it doesn't make it too thick to sew, and I'm just taking off the little reveres, the edges of those. And then you can then just turn that round, corner of a seam gauge or a knitting needle works well, because you want to tuck in those raw edges. And it's hard for you to see on these straps because of the pattern, but I'm just tucking in the end so that the end's straight. And then when that's all nice and flat, we're then going, and we've done both ends, we're then going to stitch close to the edge, only like a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of the strap there. And then I would go round all four edges. So down this long edge, across the one at the bottom, down the other edge, and then across the one at the bottom, and then you've got two nicely top stitched straps. And I would extend my my stitch length as well up to a number 3 stitch as well. So I'll come back and show you when I've done that. But just take your time. It's top stitching. Try not to make it wavy, especially if you've got a linen or a plain fabric where you're going to see your stitching. Just turn your speed dial down and take it really steady and you should be fine. Okay, so I'll carry on doing this. So when you're sewing these straps, I've got my both ends done and both folded into the centre. Put your two long edges together. Make sure you've got no threads where you don't want them. And then I'm going to set up my machine to sew just a 1/16 of an inch away from the one edge. And I'm not going to reverse stitch. I'm going to do that invisible stitch start and finish that I do. If you've not seen that before, then carry on watching. So I'm just going to, and I need to take my stitch length up to 3 because we're top stitching as well. So along the edge here, can pin it if you want to, but they do tend to get in the way. Make sure that if you've got anything poking out on the bottom of your straps, just use your awl just to poke those raw edges in, because you want those to be nicely enclosed. And you can use your awl as well just to hold everything down nice and neat, because it will possibly get stuck underneath your presser foot because you've only got a really small amount of fabric to hold on to. So I use my awl very carefully, keep it out of the way of the needle, otherwise you'll break your needle, but just gently, just to put some pressure on so that I can then push that stitch back, perhaps just one more stitch. Will we get one more? Yes, into the edge. And then again we can use the awl just to make sure that that's going to go back neatly without having too many stitches all in one place. And I'm going to come all the way down the other end. Just be careful again, coming up to the edge. And just when you turn it again, just make sure you've got all of your edges of your straps all poking inside so that you're not going to get anything messy and poking out. Across the end. It's a bit too close to the end, let me just move it back slightly. That will do. Right, and then we're going to come down the other side. And you're trying to make sure that those folded edges are as close in as possible and as even as possible. So you don't want a big overlap of one side sticking out if you can help it. Oops, mine doesn't want to move on. Let's lose that all. That's it, got it. So sometimes it gets stuck because it's bulky underneath there. So we're going to go back up now to join those stitches together where I started. And then I'm going to take my needle out of the work and leave a long tail. So what I've got is a strap that is sewn all the way down here and all the way down here, and it's gone across the top. That they are fiddly to do that. It's a little bit sticking out, so I am going to just snip that off just to neaten that up. The other one's okay, the other one's gone in quite nicely, so you just have to just keep your eye on them and see what, just do your best. That's all you can do. All you can ever do is just do your best. Don't give yourself too much of a hard time if it's not as perfect as you want it to be. Just keep perspective. Right, so the next thing then that we're going to do then is get a hand sewing needle, and I'm going to need my glasses as well because it's close-up work. And then if I use this big needle, hopefully you'll be able to see. Right, I'll move that out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So we go to where our stitches are, and we're going to separate out the top threads and the bottom threads for a start. And then if we isolate one of the top threads, we should be able to pull on it and it'll pull up a loop for the stitch for underneath. And then you can put the top of your needle through and you can pull it up. So that's one of the threads from below brought up. So bringing all the threads up to one side, then locate the other thread, pull on it to give you a loop, and then you can pull that one through. So you end up with all 4 threads on one side and none on the other. Then what we do is we just take 2 of those threads with our needle, just use your needle just to separate them out. And then you're going to take those threads, those 2 threads, and just do 2 knots in them, just 2 little tight knots in there. Then put the 2 ends together, snip them off so they're the same length because that makes it easier for threading your needle, and then just thread your needle with both threads together. And then I'm going to go in with my point of my needle right by where we tied that knot, and then I'm going to slide my needle through the edge, the folded edge of the bias here, so you can't see it on the inside, you can't see it on the outside, and then it's going to come out. So can you see where my needle is? It's travelled along about 1 inch, and then I'm going to pull my needle through and give it a tug, and it'll pull that knot into the strap, and then I'm going to snip my threads off. Again, this is one of those perfectionist things that you may not be bothered about. If you're not, just reverse stitch on yours and then just snip your threads off. But if you're like me and you like to get a really top class finish, then this is the pain you have to go to get it. This is the patience you have to show. So again, two knots there. Snip your threads off so they're the same length. Little lick on the edge of your threads because it does help just keep them together for going through the eye of the needle. And again, we're then going to go right in by the side of that knot, and then we're going to travel along the folded edge of the strap, bring the needle out. You can see the edge of the needle just there, look. And then pull your threads through, and then give your threads a little pull, and the needle will pull needle, the knot will pull it into your work. Put a little bit of tension on your threads when you snip them, and it'll pull it back into the work for you. And there you've got, you'd be hard pressed for anybody to be able to tell you where the stitching started and stopped on that. If your stitches aren't quite straight together, just take one thread and just hand do that stitch to make them join, and then you'll end up with two lovely straps like this. So I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm coming back to you tomorrow after I've had my hair done, so I might look a bit different for the end of the video to the start of the video, because I want to be able to show you how to finish this off, and we'll do the hem tomorrow. We're going to we've got a ribbon that we need to attach to go through here, which cinches in the back of the garment, and I want to go and buy my ribbon because I haven't got any to match this garment. And then we're going to neaten it up on the inside as well and just finish it all off. So we're nearly there, so bear with me. Forgive me for leaving you hanging halfway through, but hopefully you won't even know that, and I will be back to you tomorrow and we'll get this darling pinafore finished off together. Okay, see you later. Okay, so I'm back again. This is the day after, and apologies for the very echoey room, but I've now emptied my sewing room because I'm having some more new units built and I needed to get those done last night. Apologies for the sound anyway, it's going to sound different, so I'll try not to shout at you and then we should be okay. So I just wanted to recap where we are. So we've been sewing our collector's pinafore. We've got our bib front, we've got the underarm section, we've got our pockets sewn on, and we've got the gathers along the waist. Oops, sorry, the table's rocking. And the last thing we did was sew this back seam, centre back seam, leaving a little gap in the back between the notches. If you can see where my finger's just poking out. Let me get my awl again and just show you. So we've got a little gap just in the back of the seam just there where that's poking through. And then we've got to deal with all the inside. So if we just pop this inside out now, just to sort of show you where we are. Because I think that this next bit would have been quite confusing for people, and I don't think the instructions were overly clear, and obviously they can't demonstrate it, they're just using words to try and explain. But what happens is, so if you remember, we folded out the lining of the bib here so that we could attach the back skirt onto it there. So you've got this bit here, and that gives us a pivot point there where we can fold that over with the lining. You see where my lining is a different colour. And then we turned up a small edge so that we can then stitch that down onto the back down here. Now, that's all good, and we understand all of that. That's going to sew over the front of there and hide all that gathering, which are going to be lovely and neat. And we've still got our hem to do as yet, which we will do shortly. But I think the confusing bit is going to come onto the back here. So in the instructions, Sarah calls for you to neaten along this edge here, which is the top of the back of the skirt, and also along this bib edge, because when she finishes it, she has this just straight down with the neatened edge here, either zigzagged or overlocked or just pinking shears. And then when you stitch in the ditch on the other side, you catch this edge. Now, you're not going to be surprised to hear me say, but that's not a finish I'm comfortable with or particularly like. So I have turned under my seam allowance so that when I rest this bib nice and level, making sure there's no catches in it, it just rests right on top of that stitch line. And so I will hand stitch this top of this bib down to this section here when we've finished. Not yet, but when we've finished. On the back here, I haven't got a row of stitching to hand stitch it to, so I'm going to fold that under, and that'll carry on from the front bib, and then that will catch down, and then we will stitch that down, and that will neaten that back edge. The reason why that gap is left in the back there is because the instructions, the designer Sarah Peel of CoolCrafting wants us to take our length of ribbon. Now this might be a little bit narrower than what she originally intended, because it's supposed to be 1.5 centimetres, and that's 1 centimetre wide, but you're going to get the gist. She wants you to, because the length of this ribbon, I'm going to poke it through now, but it's going to poke through that hole on the edge there, and it's going to lie flat until you get to this side seam here. And when you get to the side seam here, you're going to locate where that pivot point is between your lining and your top fabric on the side seam here, where the pocket is, And without any twists or kinks in it, she wants you to pin this ribbon to that edge just there. Just extend it by 1 centimetre, she says. Can you tell I was reading the instructions last night and not just winging it? And then she wants you to pin it like this so that it's in place. And she wants you to keep the head of the pin down so that when you then fold this over, you're going to be able to just have that just right on the edge of that pin. So there's our 1 centimetre overlap the sewn edge of the ribbon. And then when you've put that down there, we're going to stitch over the top of the ribbon down here. That's going to hold that ribbon in because that's going to get caught in that seam just there to hold that down, and we want that to be perfect. But she also says to pin the ribbon up against that curved, that ironed in folded edge, if you like, all the way to the edge just here. So this is instead of elastic in the back to give it a nice cinched in back of the waist, and then so you've got the ribbon poking out through the hole into the front here. Let me help you get your bearings. This is our centre back seam. That was where I was poking my yellow awl through to show you the hole, and all I've done is poke the ribbon through there from the back and then carried it along that fold to the side seam here where we've got 1 centimetre overlap. And then the idea would be that when you then folded this over, the pins will keep the ribbon out of the way whilst you stitch along here. And then when you've done that on both sides, if I just turn this around the other way, had you've done this on both sides, you'd then be able to cinch this ribbon up, pins are in the way at the moment, and gather it up and tie it in a bow, and then at the back of the collector's pinafore, and there's actually no pictures of the back of it in the book, so you'd be hard pressed to understand quite what was going on, then that would give you a nice ribbon then to cinch into a bow, which would tighten it around the back of Bramble or Flora and make it comfortable for them to wear. So hopefully that explains what the instructions say, but I kind of felt that there was a missed opportunity here. So we're going to do the same sort of thing, and I'm hoping it's going to work. But in my imagination, I saw, oops, lost a pin, hold on 1 second, it's inside there. I saw this as rather than having a smaller, thinner ribbon, I mean this one is half, so it needs to be half that width again on the actual instructions. So my ribbon's 1 centimetre and the ribbon should have been 1.5 centimetres. So let's turn this round again just to give us the back of the bib so you can see, and we're looking at the top of the back here. I went along to my Merthyr, I mean I got this ribbon here, so let's start with that first. So I saw something like this on the back of it. And you might instantly go, oh my God, that's hideous. But to my mind, having that lovely big bow on the back of that pinafore when Bramble's sitting in there wearing it, I thought would be lovely. Now this colour's not right for this outfit, which is why it's not working. So I went along to the Merthyr in Spain, which is their haberdashery shop, and they hadn't got anything like this. So I bought 3 different options for us to try. Now I'm going to tuck in a bit of this fabric here, because this is what eventually the blouse will be made of. So that will help us when we're choosing our colour and the scale as to how this is going to look. Let me just tilt the camera just up slightly, hold on 1 second. Okay, so we've got this lovely white Swiss dot fabric here. Was it the wrong way around? No, that's the right way around. So if I just fold that up and just put that inside, that's just going to imitate the back of the shirt. We're going to have some straps going up over the back here, which is what happens on this as well. So let me just lay those on top for now. And then I could see it with a lovely big bow at the back, but they hadn't got any of this in a closer colour. I was thinking a nice cream would look nice, or this beigey colour. So they gave me 3 options. The first one we looked at was this one. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is quite a lot whiter than the cream is of there and looked a bit stark against it, but not a bad, you know, a little bit less poofy than this one. And also we looked at this one here, but that one felt a little bit insignificant and nondescript. So those are the 2 options that we looked at, but then she found this one. And I kind of thought, well, actually, that will perhaps look quite nice and that will do. So I think I'm going to go with this one, but just bear in mind that when I was talking to you yesterday about my fabulous idea and how wonderful it was going to look, I was looking at something that was going to be big like this and just a real poof to it. And I love a lovely big bow on the back of a child's dress anyway, so probably that's where it comes from. But if you like something more plain and simple, and you've either got some ribbon or some tape that you can use, and especially if you've bought the Meadowsweet pack, you might have some ribbon in there already. But we're just going to go along. So I'm going to use this one, this beigey coloured one with the check in it, really, the self-tie check, which is a really pretty ribbon. And I think that on the back there will look quite nice and have some detail and some interest. Anyway, so the principle is the same for actually putting the ribbon in and for using it. I've got thread there. But obviously I'm just using something that's much thicker. Let me just have a look and see how thick this is. So this is 1 inch thick, which is 2.5 centimetres. I bought a metre of this ribbon. I know in the, I think the thinner the ribbon is, the less you need. The thicker the ribbon, the more you're going to need just to create that drama. Right, I'll get back on track again now. So let's take that little bit of fabric out. We've got our straps. Now the other thing that I noticed is that when Sarah's doing this, she sews the straps on after she's sewn the ribbon through, and I think we can do it before. Again, I just change things, but that's the way that we roll sometimes, isn't it? So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to locate the straps, because that uses the crease line that we've got in the inside of the bodice. So let's attach those first, then we can keep those out of the way whilst we deal with the actual bow itself. So the instruction is to measure 3 centimetres from the edge of from the seam. So let me measure 3 centimetres in from the edge of the seam, and I'm just on, can you see that fold line that we ironed in? So I'm going to be attaching it at the top of there. So first of all, find the centre point in the middle of that seam allowance, and let's just pop a pin in just for now. And let's do the other side whilst we're here. 3 centimetres again. So we've just got our 2 pins in, just holding that in place. And then just on that folded line, as you can see. So then so that's on the inside. On the right side, where we can see those bits of metal come through, we're going to choose one edge of our strap that we've made. We want to run it up from the bottom, but remember you're going to be turning in 1 centimetre. So turn in your centimetre on your bottom edge, and then run your strap up from that bottom edge up to the mark on the pin where you are. So I'll show you in a second. Let me get a straight pin, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? This one's going to bend as well. Try doing it that way instead. Get the other one. So I'm pushing it so that the straps are up towards the body of the pinafore. I've got the bottom of the strap just level with the bottom of where that turned in edge is going to be. So if I open that out, you can see there's about 1 centimetre between the hem here and the bottom of the strap, because that's where that's going to turn up to give us a nice neat edge. And then the straps, so my pins are just, one's just here. Oh, where have I put it? It's falling out, that's why I can't see it. So the strap pin is just there, my centre seam is here, and I've just put my strap the other side of that 3 centimetre mark, and I've got a pin on it. And the same here, there's that the centre mark, you can't see it because of the busyness, so there's the centre of our seam allowance. There's my pin for my 3 centimetres, and I've come to the outside away from the centre edge to put my pin in to hold my strap in place. And what I'm going to do now is just go to the sewing machine. I'm going to locate where that folded edge is for the strap. And we're just going to put a few stitches through with our sewing machine, top and bottom, on each of these straps, making sure that we're right on that folded edge, because we want that folded edge to be intact. Or you can go just a little bit below it if you wanted to, so long as you're there or thereabouts. And you want your strap just to sit straight down. So I think that'll make it easier when we come to do it later, because otherwise you've got to try and sew it without sewing through your ribbon. And I think that's a little bit more difficult. So let me just put that pin out of the way. get our machine. Apologies for the table wobbling, I'm having to attach the camera to the table for this section. Right, make sure you can see. Let me just lower the camera again a little bit. There we go, okay. So for this, let's take that bit off our sewing machine and see if that makes it any easier. I'm going to be sewing from the inside of the, from the outside of the garment. And let's do the bottom first. So I'm just taking my free arm bit off my machine so that I can pop this onto my machine. Here's the bottom of my straps around where the edge of the, where that 1 centimetre is going up. Just move your pin out the way so it's not going to get in the way, and I'm just going to do a few stitches forward and a few stitches back, just a couple of times just to attach that down. So where's my snips gone? I've put them somewhere. Here they are, right. So I'll snip those threads and just leave a little bit of a length because I'm going to pull those through to the inside. Let's do the other bottom one as well whilst we're here first. So just pull the pin back slightly so it's still holding on but it's just out of the way. Now we're on to doing the, is that one attached? Yes. So now we're on to doing the top ones. So I'm going to take out the horizontal pins holding those, and then making sure that you know where your folded edge is for the top of that bodice, because we want these to be sticking out over the top like this. Then I'm just going to go just below where my pin is, holding those in place so we've got those right. And when I put my presser foot down, I'm going to take my pin out. And a few stitches forward and a few stitches back. Just a couple of times, just holding those in place. Take the threads off. And then do the last one. So this is just attaching the straps and just making sure that those are in place for us. And then that means that when we do sew everything down, we will be avoiding the ribbon. So I've gone backwards and forwards twice on those just to keep those out of the way. And then what I want to do is just pull through on those threads to get them through to the other side. Right, so on the back here, we're just going to take these threads, do our normal thing of pulling on them, seeing if they'll come through. If they won't, we'll just go to this side here. Usually use a decent sized needle just to make it easier to thread. I'm just going to poke all of these threads through to the other side, and then I'll knot as many as I can do, and that'll just stop any loose threads from coming through onto the outside of the garment whilst it's being used. It's just neatening things off. Belt and braces. Belt and braces, and we're sewing straps. It's going through there. And then this one here, oops, threads like to hold on to, the corduroy likes to hold on to these threads. They're quite short ones. I'll show you this side once I've got this side finished. So on the outside you've got all the threads are taken care of and they've all gone underneath, inside here. And then we just allocate 2 and 2. I'm just going to tie that into a knot, and then I'm going to leave about 1 centimetre seam allowance end on the threads, and that will have our straps then neatly sewn on, which is what we wanted, because that's a job that it shows in the instructions to do later, but I think it's going to be easier to do it now. So I'll do the other side in a moment. And if I turn this over on that folded line we had before, and also turn up the 1 centre seam allowance, hopefully you'll be able to see that the strap here is just being sewn just in between those 2 sections. So there we go. So there's no stitching on the outside at all holding that strap on. And then when we stitch this hem down on the inside, it'll just go across here and just do a row of stitching, and that'll stop it from flicking up. So that's what we're doing first. Let me just neaten this side and then we'll come when I'm just going to start and work on the ribbon. Okay, so the next step then I think is to turn your pinafore dress inside out. And here you can see those 2 rows of stitching. I've got 1 row there and 1 row there, look, and that's what's holding the thread on there, look. And that's what I've got holding the straps on, and the straps are pointing down inside the bodice, because when we flick that up we need them to be going up and over the shoulder, so when we attach them they need to be down inside. So next thing I'm going to do now is take my ribbon, and I'm not going to cut it in half yet because we don't need to, but it'll help me keep it straight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to poke the 2 ends through the hole in the back, and this is the same whether you're using the thin ribbon or the fatter ribbon like I am, the thicker ribbon for the big dramatic bow, or whether you want a smaller, more functional bow, then that's absolutely your choice. And this is the thing, when you're making things yourself, you can alter things and tweak things and make your own design. So I've got the loop of my ribbon down here, but we can split that into 2 separate amounts, but I'm just leaving it intact for the moment. And then I'm then bringing this ribbon round to this side seam here. So here's the side seam, there's our gathered waist, and that's the pocket on the stitching there, look. So this is the side seam, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this ribbon in order to pleat it so it makes it thinner, because I think that will be better to keep it out of the way. So we're going to do as Sarah says and overlap it about 1 centimetre. That's our sewn line just there, so we're going to overlap that by about 1 centimetre, and then I'm going to just pin that from the other side. So that's just, you can see the pin in the middle, hopefully just holding that ribbon down. I'm then going to go to the other side. Just make sure that this is all lying flat and straight. I mean, in fact, we can just fold it in half and pin it along that. So we're identifying where the folded crease is. Can you remember we had that folded crease for the waist? And I'm just folding that in half and just laying it flat, lying it flat. No pins now. Oh, I'm all out of sorts. And we're going to pin that. So we're pinning the ribbon here. I'm doing it slightly differently to Sarah. Surprise, surprise. Because I just want that to sit nicely. And actually, I think if we put the pins going horizontal and holding that ribbon out of place, we'll be able to still miss it anyway with our seam. So that's what I am going to do. So I've got a pin going through here, you can see the back of it just there, look. I've got a pin just there and a pin just there. And then on this edge here, and I've got my ribbon folded in half because mine's thicker than the recommended one in the pattern. So that's then holding that straight. Then I'm going to come to the other side here, and I've folded my satin edges together and up. So I'm going to do the same on this side and take this over to the other side, and I'm joining it 1 centimetre past that side seam on the bib there. I know I repeat myself several times, but hopefully it all makes sense to you. And I'm just going to put my pin in sideways to hold that in place. So I'm putting my pins horizontally, not vertically as it says in the instruction book. I'm being a rebel. And then again in the middle here. Because all we're really doing with these pins is holding that ribbon up to that top edge so that it doesn't get mixed up when we're trying to stitch down the back of the waist seam. It'll all make sense, honestly. If you're not sure, just sit back and watch me, see what I'm doing, and then you'll be able to see what happens in the end. So, pin holding on the side of the ribbon here, and then it's pinned up to the top of where that fold is going to be in there. We're not sewing through that fold at all. We're just going to keep it all in place. And then what we're going to do then is I'm going to fold under my 1 centimetre on that edge, that bottom edge of the, well, it's the top edge of the skirt, isn't it? But it's the bottom of that hem. And I am then going to put a pin in. You can do it horizontally or vertically on that bit, doesn't matter. And now I'm going to go to the side seams, fold it where the bodice meets the top of the skirt, the top of the bib, and attach that so that your seam lines are on top of each other. And let's put another pin. We're going to sew it this way, so let's pop it in there. And then just make sure that you're happy with your amount of your seam allowance at the top there, and that your straps are in the right place. I've taken that a bit low because the edge of the ribbon, the edge of the ribbon should come out right at the top of that folded edge. It'll all make sense, honestly, it really will all make sense in a minute. You're going to have an aha moment. I see what she's doing, even though she's not doing a very good job of explaining it. So that's what we're doing. So basically what you're doing by having your pins through your ribbon is you're keeping it up into the folded edge of your hem, so that when you fold the fabric over and put your pins in, it holds that ribbon out of the way so it doesn't get trapped. Because you want to be able to gather this back waist up with the ribbon to cinch it in, and that's what's going to give the shape at the back of the skirt. If you don't like the ribbon effect, you could attach a piece of elastic, and you could do elastic exactly the same way. I think Sarah's just gone for a bit of a design detail on this that looks nice, and therefore that's why she's sort of gone with this alternative. And I think it's going to look really pretty, so I can see why that's been done. So just adjust your pins just to make sure you're happy with those all the way along. So this is what we end up with. So we've got our two straps sticking out from the back of our top there. This is the back, centre back of the skirt. The ribbon is tucked inside the dress. We don't need that to be, or we can just have it out with the straps, can't we, I suppose, because we're going to be stitching around here. And then Sarah has you stitch all the way round, but we're going to do it in two different stages. We're going to start here first, and we're going to stitch down through both sides of this seam just here, nice and neatly, down towards our hem, which is here. And then we're going to leave our needle in our work and pivot, and then we're going to stitch just on the edge here, all the way around, across through the straps as well. So the end of the straps, or you can, well, yeah, through the end of the straps, and just hold those down all the way across the back. But you just got to make sure your ribbons and your straps are up and out of the way, so they need to be out the way. Back to this other side, and then we're going to sew back up and down here again. And by sewing up and down that side seam, you're actually sewing over the edges of the ribbon, which is going to hold it intact. Then we're going to come back, and then we will hand sew this front bit down, because I always think that's a bit neater. If you want to, you can machine sew, but I've never ever got a neat edge on a machine sewn waist like that, so I do just take the time to hand sew that down. It literally takes 5 minutes, if that, and in the scheme of things it's not a lot. But then we're on the homeward stretch, so let's get this into the machine, and then we'll be able to show you what we're actually doing. So let me get my machine ready. Apologies for the wobble. So I'm going to start on this side here. So I'm kind of just got to push that edge of the side seam up, and then we're going to pivot. Now which way am I going to go? We're going to go this way, aren't we really? So let's have it this way instead. Okay. So with everything else out of the way, we're going to put this seam edge on the edge just here. Hold on to your threads. And then I'm just going to take, so I'm going to go a couple of stitches, it doesn't want to go because it's quite thick. So down towards that pin, take the pin out before you get there, needle in your work, and I'm just going to reverse because I just want that ribbon to be really firmly sewn in there. Found another pin, oh, it's the day of pins today. And then back down again. So that's got that ribbon sewn in nice and neat. So I'm just on the edge now, so I'm going to leave my needle in my work, lift my presser foot and twist. And now I can neaten everything out. So the ribbon's coming up to the edge here, and the straps, I'm going to make sure the straps are up here as I start to sew. My pins are in, holding my ribbon still on the other side out of the way. So let's put this edge down, and I'm just going to sew. My stitch length's on 3, so that's fine. I'm just going to sew on this edge here. And this is around the top of the back of the skirt. Keep your ribbon and your straps out as you just adjust. Got a thick bit coming up, so just make sure that just goes through your machine nicely. I've managed to miss the bottom of my strap on there, so that's good. Across to the back seam, pins out as we go. Coming up to the next strap now, so where's my oar? Because that will be helpful in case it starts to get stuck and we can push through. So just using my oar just to help that through. It's done quite well. So again, pin out as we're getting close to this other side seam now. Just keep readjusting, make sure all your ribbon and your straps are out of the way. And then we're coming up to this side seam again. So just make sure your bib's nice and flat. You've got a nice crisp edge just there. So I'm going to go to just this section just here. A couple more stitches, that's it. And then I'm going to leave my needle in my work, lift up my presser foot, and I'm going to twist this round again. And I want to sew along between where the bib lining meets that back waistband. And I've got a pin at the back there. I'm going to take that out because I know that ribbon will now be secured in there. And I'm going to go forwards, I'm going to go backwards, and then I'm going to go forwards again and backwards again, just to make sure that ribbon has got some nice, oops, if it'll go, some nice stitches through it. Then my needle out of my work. Take those threads off. Okay, let's have a little look. So the front of the bib is still loose. We've not sewn that down. We've just sewn down here between the front of the bib and the side of the waistband, having turned under the seam, the raw edge underneath. And we've got some little bit of stitching. Maybe I've gone overkill, but anyway, who knows. On the side here, let me just see if I can get these threads pulled through to the other side. It's not going to pull through for me. So I'm going to pop that through with a needle, and then I'll just tie 2 knots in that thread. Make sure they're nice and tight. Keep that nice and tight, and then I'm going to thread my needle, and I'm going to feed these threads back through into the waistband area, but cut them off so when they're a couple of centimetres, well, about 1 inch long. So just thread that back in through that waistband. I'm just going through one side, not going through the other side, and snip that off, and that gives us a lovely, neat finish on this edge just here. Then you can see we've got the stitch going through just here, holding that waistband down, and on the right side you can probably see that stitch. And now we can take out the pins holding the ribbon down, because they've done their job. And on the other side we just need to neaten these threads off to make sure that they're there. So we came down here, sewed all the way across the back here. Take this pin out. And then when we've actually got this, let me just turn this around the right way for you. This will hopefully be your aha moment. Is that when you then pull on those ribbons, because you've not caught them in the back of those stitching, that's why we held them out the way, you can cinch in and gather the back of this dress look. And then the idea will be that we can then do our bow at the back here, and that will then hold everything. I'm going to get the bow in the nice proportions, and that will hold everything in place and give the shaping at the back of the garment. Okay, so I'm hoping that's all made sense to you. It should do, I think. But those ribbons basically have been cinched into the back there, and then they come out the back here. Yours might be a little bit shorter than mine. I'm just going to snip mine off at equal amount, and then I'll neaten it up with some fold check at the end. So that's all looking all lovely. The next thing I'm going to do now is thread my hand sewing needle with some thread, and I'm going to just catch down the front of this bodice. Remember, we turned it up by the seam, same as the seam allowance, 1 centimetre. That now is just going to sit along the front here, and it should just match perfectly because it's exactly the same length as the front bib. So I'm just going to stitch now by hand along here, and I stitch the folded edge there against the sewn edge just here of the stitches. So that's what I'm going to do next. Then we're going to do the hem, and then we're going to do the buttonholes to finish it off. And then you've got your finished pinafore dress. So we really are on the homeward stretch. I hope you've liked that little ribbon detail with using the different kind of ribbon. As I say, it's you're either going to love it or hate it, so it's going to be a bit Marmite. But if you don't like any of having a ribbon at all, just attach elastic at this side here and the side, pin it up out of the way, and then just pull it flat whilst you stitch it, and that will give you exactly the same effect as to cinching it in, but will be a bit more permanent. This one's a bit more adjustable, so that if you've got a character that needs a bit more room, then you can adjust it. So let me get this sewn and I'll be back with you. Just in case you want to see the stitch that I use, I've started back here. So I've just got a single thread of machine thread, and then what I'm doing is I did a couple of stitches in place just to secure my knot, and then I'm moving along. So what I do is I'm going to go under the stitch that's sewed the waist seam, which is just here. I travel through above that, which is actually through the gathers. I can feel the gathers with my finger here, thumb here, and then I go into that folded edge with my needle. So I'm travelling along the back there at an angle. Hopefully you can see that. Trying to see what you can see. And then I pull it tight. When I take my next stitch, I go directly down from where that stitch has come out. My needle goes in underneath that stitching line, travels again at a diagonal line across through to the fold of the fabric. Just use my thimble. I really love this silicone thimble, it's really helpful. And then pull it through, and what you get is this little vertical stitch that when you just give it a little tug, a little pull, it just kind of disappears into the fabric and you can hardly see it. I use this stitch quite a lot. You have to just take your time, but then I think it's worth it just to get that lovely finish. I'll take that pin out. But you're always trying to come out exactly where, so go back into your seam again. Let me go that way, that might be easier. Exactly where you've come out with across from where you've come out with your thread. So let me just do this one. So come out just here. So I'm going in straight under it, and I'm within the gathers. So when you turn it over, you can't see anything because you're within the edge of the gathers behind here. When you're travelling, you just push on with my thimble, and then there's my little stitches along the back there. I'm just going to carry on along the end of here then, and I'll come back to you. Okay, so just finished sewing the front bib down, so that's all looking all nice and neat now. Return this back round the right way. I know it's a bit of a busy print for you to be able to see what's actually happening, but we're getting towards a finished pinafore now. So we're going to work on the hem and get that neatened off because mine's fraying like crazy. I keep pulling threads off. So we're going to do that, and then we'll come back and we'll just talk about finishing off this top bit. So just make sure your ribbons and your straps are out the way. You've already got that memory on the bottom of the hem, and I'm just going to turn under about 1 centimetre as well, just to give us that hem edge, and just neaten that up. So let's just go round, and because we've already pressed it once, then the skirt should want to just press over under where you had it before. And you can go ahead, I think Sarah in the instructions has just overlocked this edge or zigzagged it and then turned it up, but I do think it gives a nicer finish if you can double fold it. But I'm not folding it all the way down, as I say, we've just folded over, oh, I've got some threads, look there. I've just got about 0.5 centimetre. 1/4 inch just folded over, and we'll just catch that on the edge of the hem as we're sewing, so just make sure it's all nice and even, and you'll see this top stitching from the outside, so I think that I ought to be measuring really just to make sure that I've got this right. So my hem is just under 1 inch. Let's take it to 1 inch, shall we? So I'm going to put 1 inch hem on here by folding under about 1 centimetre. Measure that for you a second. Yeah, I'm turning under 1 centimetre and I'm turning it up an inch, which is 2.5 centimetres, and that will make it nice and even all the way round. So go around and do the same with yours. So it's going under 1 centimetre, and then it's going over 2.5 centimetres to where we measured it before, just to make sure that that's where we want it to be and how we want it to be. And then I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm literally going to be stitching just right on the edge, just there. If you go too far down, we're going to miss the little bit we've folded under. So you've got to make sure you're within that measurement. And if you go closer to the edge, it just makes it sit nicer, and the weight of the hem is secured down at that point just there. So I'm just sewing my hem down now. I've got a stitch length of 3 because we're top stitching, and I've moved my needle right the way across to the left. And I'm just lining it up with a point on my presser foot, needle in my work to take my pins out, and then I can move the dress around a bit. And then, so you're just trying to do the next 3 or 4 inches, I suppose, really, to your next pin. And then we stop to take the pin out. If you try and take your pins out whilst you are actually stitching, you'll find you veer off slightly, or generally that's what can happen. Just make sure everything's lovely and straight. And I usually start my hems either at the centre back seam or at one of the side seams, and that's the same when I'm hemming trousers as well. So I think it hides the join. You definitely don't want that join of the threads at centre front. Just take your time over your side seams because they're a bit bulky. Just reverse back. You can do that invisible finish if you want to, but on hems I don't worry so much about it. So just move the machine out of the way. And there we go, so we've got our hem all nicely sewn. Perhaps just see the stitching line. On this side you can see I'm right to the very top of that turned edge as well. You can see my stitching line just going through there. And that is going to sit really nicely, it's not going to move, and it's going to look really neat. Again, if you wanted to, you could hand stitch, but if you were doing this in a linen or something like that that's not quite such a busy print as this one, it would look really nice to have the stitching in a contrast colour thread. So again, you want to be really precise on that and really neat. So I'm just finding my threads here. I'll poke them through to the other side. And again, I keep saying again, sorry. What it does, the reason why I go to that trouble is because it then means that those threads aren't ever going to work their way loose and come out and undo onto the front of your garment. So that's why we take that extra time just to find those loops and just pull the thread through from the other side. And then once you've done that, you can knot those 2 off and then hide it in your hem. Just tuck those in, and having a longer tail on it than just cutting it really short just means those stitches are just much less likely to come undone ever. If you're making an heirloom item, you really want it to last the years. So again, needling just where those knots were. Just go not on, don't come through the front, don't go through the back, just go through the middle. Just about an inch or so is enough. Pull on your threads just to make sure they've all gone through, and then just put a little bit of tension on your threads and snip, and that'll just pull the tail back onto the inside. So I've just got one more set of threads to do just here. So the end of the straps Sarah has in the picture on the Meadowsweet Pattern booklet. If I turn it over, you can see that they're poked through buttonholes and then knotted on the end, and that's one option that you can do. The other thing that you could do is have a button on the outside here that's stitched on the outside at each buttonhole point, but then on the back of each strap you can put press studs, and that will then hold the straps into place on the back with a button trim. So I'm not going to show you how to do that bit, because you're either going to sew on a button and a press stud, or you're going to be putting a buttonhole. And I'm going to finish these when I've actually finished my bramble, because I haven't got a bramble at the moment to try this on. So I'm going to just take out my tailor's tacks, because I know roughly where those marks are going to be, and I'll put my button on when I need to. But if you wanted to do a buttonhole, then just follow the instructions on your sewing machine to make your buttonholes, or do your buttonholes by hand. That's the other thing you could do. but I think I'll just end up having a faux button on the front, well, a real button, but a faux, you know, a faux buttonhole placement, and then I'll put some press studs on the back here to hold those. So let's just, I've got Otterline here just to try it on. Now, Otterline isn't the correct character. She is far too small for this Pinafore, but it will just give you an idea of how this looks once it is finished. So let's put that bib up the front just there. Otterline, this tail needs to go in. So here we're going to cinch at the back of the ribbon, and I'm going to just put a single knot in first just to hold that shut, and then I'm going to tie my bow. Put the tails down the bottom there, just make sure that looks nice. And I've just got to get the proportions right on it to make sure that it's right and looks nice. Open up my ribbon bow. That needs to go down there. Bows take a little bit of faffing with, don't they, just to get them to sit right, but once it's done it can look nice. And then I'm going to put a pin in at the back here just to hold those, because see how much fabric we've got left on the straps, just to hold that in place for her at the back there. Let's use a black pin because you might not see that so much. So bear in mind that this is intended for a much bigger character than Otterline is, but it'll just give us an idea of how this is to look. And she's looking absolutely adorable in it though, for saying it's not for her. So Otterline, don't get too attached to it. I suppose you could shrink the pattern, couldn't you, and make it smaller for her if you wanted to. Okay, so I've got Otterline in. I've just pinned some buttons on so you get the effect of the buttons, and you can just have those however you wish. And obviously this is way too long and too big for her, but you can just see how that's just sitting on her on the front. The bib is fitting nicely. Lovely gathered skirts. We've got the working pockets that she could then put little treats, fish in, or her hands in, or what have you to have in there. And then on the back, we've got the straps coming over the back. We've cinched it in with a lovely ribbon, which I'll just neaten the ends of, and that looks quite nice and neat on the back there. I'm pleased with how that looks. As I say, it's not quite as dramatic as I was going to have, but this one's probably more in proportion with how it should be. And then we've got our lovely hem at the bottom of the skirt. So I'll just tip you round and we can have a little chat and do a little bit of a roundup. So there we go. That's it for the collector's Pinafore dress, modelled here by Otterline. I hope you've enjoyed stitching along with me today. It's a really lovely make, this one is. It's not as complicated, I think, as some people feel that it has been. I think once you understand what Sarah's decided, what trying to get you to do with the back of the ribbon going through that waistband, then I think that a lot more becomes more obvious. And obviously this isn't the character, it needs to be on a bramble bear, but in terms of a bit of interpretation of that, then hopefully you feel that that's enough for you to be able to stitch along with me. So again, I want to just say thank you very much to Linda Lowe for sponsoring the Meadowsweet Pattern booklet with me, which is what I've used to sew Bramble's Pinafore dress out of. I think you can also see that the fabric you choose makes a huge difference as to how the finished garment will look. So have fun with that. Obviously this is made in a lovely linen. Just be careful when you're cutting out to watch the direction of those pattern pieces, because I say one is vertical and one's horizontal, and if you've got a fabric where there's a very deliberate pattern on it, you need to have it one way or the other. You can't have a mix like that, but on linen it won't matter so much. That's fine on a plain fabric. But yeah, if you've enjoyed today and enjoyed sewing along with me, then I really would appreciate if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. The more the merrier is how I feel about that. And if you've found any value or you find yourself coming backwards and forwards to the videos again and again, then that would be great if you were a subscriber and let me know that you were around. So I appreciate that. Please give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and also click on the notifications bell if you want to be told when I update a new video. There's also my Facebook page group if you want to join that as well, which is for general sewing support. It's not just Luna Lapin, it's dressmaking, it's quilting, it's embroidery, cross stitch, all sorts of things like that. So if you feel that that would be something that you'd enjoy being a part of. I mean, it's not one of those groups that posts 100 posts a day, but if you've got a make you want to share, or you want to share in a bit of sewing glory what you've made, then it's really nice, because then I get to know you as well as it just being one way like it is on YouTube. Anyway, this video is long enough. I'm going to say goodbye for now. Have a great day, everybody. I've loved stitching this pinafore dress along. I've enjoyed stitching this pinafore dress with you today, and I hope you have a great day. So take care, everybody. Happy stitching. Bye.